Michael Turner was 36 years old, and by all accounts, a man who had built the kind of life many envied. He had a stable career in architecture, a modest but beautiful suburban home, and a wife he adored more than anything in the world. His wife, Claire, was 34. With her striking auburn hair, lively green eyes, and a laugh that could fill a room, she was the center of Michael's universe. They had been married for 8 years, and to anyone looking in from the outside, they were the picture of marital happiness. Michael loved in a way that was almost old-fashioned, with complete devotion, without games, without restraint. He brought Claire breakfast in bed on Sundays, remembered every anniversary with fresh flowers, and never failed to compliment her even on ordinary days. To him, she was not just his wife but his partner, his confidant, his best friend. But for Claire, things were more complicated. She had once been swept away by Michael's gentleness, his dependability, and the comfort he provided. But as the years passed, she began to feel an emptiness she couldn't quite put into words. Michael's love was steady, safe, but also predictable. Where he saw peace, she felt monotony. And though she would never admit it to anyone, not even herself on some days, Claire craved something more dangerous, something wild. The stability that Michael so carefully built around her sometimes felt like a prison. The evening that changed everything started like any other. Michael's firm was hosting its annual gala, a grand affair held at the downtown Hilton Ballroom. It was the sort of event where deals were sealed over champagne, where suits and evening gowns mingled under chandeliers, and where reputations were polished as much as the wine glasses. Claire looked stunning that night, wearing a midnight blue dress that clung to her figure with effortless elegance. Michael, in his tailored charcoal suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. "You're breathtaking," he whispered as they walked into the ballroom together. Claire smiled, brushing a kiss against his cheek. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." They mingled with Michael's colleagues, laughing at polite jokes, clinking glasses, and playing their part as the golden couple. But while Michael engaged in conversations about upcoming projects and architectural innovations, Claire's attention drifted elsewhere. She noticed a group of Michael's friends and co-workers gathered near the bar: Daniel, Thomas, Eric, and Nathan. All men in their late 30s, confident, charming in different ways, with a kind of energy that Michael lacked. Claire had known them casually for years through office gatherings and dinner parties, but tonight, something in their glances lingered on her. Perhaps it was the way the champagne warmed her blood, or the way she had slipped into a restless mood earlier that week, but she found herself drawn to the dangerous glint in their eyes. Daniel, especially, tall, broad-shouldered, with a reputation as a ladies' man, held her gaze a second too long. And Claire, instead of looking away, allowed herself to return the glance with a small, knowing smile. Michael never noticed. He was too busy recounting a funny story to a client, his hand resting on Claire's back, a gesture of affection that made her feel both cherished and suffocated all at once. As the night wore on, Claire found excuses to wander toward the bar. First to grab another drink, then to catch some air near the lobby. Each time, one of the men was there. A word, a compliment, a subtle brush of hands as glasses exchanged. "Your husband's a lucky man," Eric murmured once, his tone low and suggestive. Claire laughed lightly, though her pulse quickened. "You think so? I know so." By midnight, the gala was in full swing. The dance floor was crowded, the music upbeat, laughter spilling into the air. Michael invited Claire to dance, but after a few songs she excused herself, claiming she needed the restroom. Michael kissed her hand, oblivious, and told her he'd wait by the table. But Claire didn't go to the restroom. She slipped toward the side corridor, where Daniel had already gone minutes before. Her phone buzzed with a message. "Daniel, room 214. Just 10 minutes. No one has to know." Claire stood frozen, her heart thundering. This was madness. Reckless. Unforgivable. And yet, she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. Her finger hovered over the screen, then, almost without thinking, she typed back. "Claire. 5 minutes." The hotel room door clicked shut behind her. The air was thick with anticipation, and Claire's pulse raced as Daniel pulled her close without a word. It wasn't love, and she knew it. It was hunger, wild, raw, and forbidden. By the time she returned to the ballroom half an hour later, her dress smoothed and her lipstick reapplied, Michael was waiting with his usual patient smile. "There you are," he said warmly, slipping an arm around her. "Everything okay?" "Of course," Claire replied, her voice steady, her smile flawless. "Just freshened up." The rest of the night passed like nothing had happened. Michael laughed, drank, and danced with her again. Claire played her role perfectly, though a strange exhilaration pulsed inside her veins. It was dangerous. It was reckless. And she wanted more. The next day began quietly, like any other Saturday. Sunlight poured through their bedroom window. The scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted from the kitchen where Michael prepared breakfast, humming softly to himself. Claire lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the night before replaying in her mind. She felt no guilt, only a strange satisfaction. For once, she had broken free of the routine, tasted something forbidden. When Michael returned with a tray, scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee, she smiled sweetly, playing the part of the loving wife. "You spoil me," she teased. "You deserve it," he replied, leaning down to kiss her forehead. But Michael, though smiling, felt something tugging at the edges of his mind. He couldn't explain it, but Claire had seemed different last night. Distant, distracted. And though he pushed the thought aside, it lingered like a shadow he couldn't shake. It was nearly noon when Michael's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He picked it up absent-mindedly, expecting a message from a colleague. Instead, he saw an anonymous email. The subject line read, "You deserve to know." His stomach tightened. Frowning, he opened it. Inside were 4 video attachments, each labeled with a single name: Daniel, Thomas, Eric, Nathan. Below them, a message. "While you toasted your success last night, this is what your wife was doing. With your friends. You should see for yourself. The whole world will soon." Michael's hand shook as he tapped the first video, and his world shattered. The video played out in grainy but unmistakable clarity. Claire, his Claire, in the hotel room, her body entwined with Daniel's. Her face, her voice, her laugh. Michael staggered back, bile rising in his throat. He dropped the phone onto the counter as though it had burned him, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear anything else. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. But it was. One by one, he forced himself to open the other files. Each one worse than the last. His wife, with men he had once trusted, men he had shared drinks with, invited into their home. His chest ached as though someone had reached inside and torn him apart. Claire was upstairs, humming softly as she showered, completely unaware of the bomb that had just exploded in their marriage. Michael sank into a chair, his vision blurring with rage, grief, disbelief. And somewhere, beneath the heartbreak, something darker stirred. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. This was war. And Michael Turner, the kind, loyal husband everyone admired, felt something inside him snap. Michael sat in the kitchen chair for what felt like hours, though the clock had barely moved 15 minutes. His hands still trembled, his breath shallow, his throat raw as though he'd been choking on air. The phone lay on the table in front of him, silent now, though its presence felt heavier than lead. He couldn't look at it anymore. He couldn't look at anything. His mind spun in violent circles, replaying the images that had burned themselves into his memory. Claire's face, flushed and alive in a way he hadn't seen in years. Her voice, laughing, whispering. And the men he had once trusted, taking turns with her as if his marriage, his life, were some cruel joke they had decided to play. Upstairs, the sound of running water stopped. He heard the bathroom door creak open, her soft footsteps across the floorboards. A minute later, she appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a towel, her hair damp, humming to herself. "Michael," she called out gently, "is the coffee still hot?" The sound of her voice made his skin crawl. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to sound calm. "Yeah, it's fresh. Come down, I'll pour you a cup." "Perfect," she said cheerfully, disappearing back into the bedroom to dress. Michael's fingers curled into fists on the table. Every instinct in his body screamed to confront her, to demand answers, to scream until the walls shook. But something else held him back, something colder, heavier. Whoever had sent those videos had written one chilling line: "The whole world will soon." If it was true, if those videos were already out there, screaming at her would mean nothing. The damage was already done. His wife's betrayal was not just private, it was public, a humiliation waiting to consume him. When Claire finally came downstairs, dressed in jeans and a cream blouse, her face fresh and glowing, she smiled at him like nothing in the world was wrong. "You're quiet," she said, sliding into the chair opposite him. "Late night catching up to you?" Michael looked at her for a long moment, his chest tight. "Something like that," he muttered. She reached across the table and touched his hand, her eyes soft with affection. "You work too hard. Maybe we should plan a weekend away. Just the two of us. No work, no stress." The irony of her words nearly made him laugh. Instead, he forced a smile and pulled his hand back to lift his coffee. "Maybe," he said flatly. The conversation drifted toward small things: errands, a grocery list, a family dinner next week. Claire chatted easily, unaware that Michael was studying her every word, every expression. Did she know the videos existed? Did she suspect someone might expose her? Or had she so carefully compartmentalized her double life that she could sit across from him, sipping coffee, and pretend nothing had happened? He couldn't tell. And that terrified him more than anything. When she left the kitchen to fold laundry, Michael finally picked up his phone again. He opened the email, staring at the line: "The whole world will soon." Who would send this? And why? If it had been just one video, he might have suspected Daniel or one of the others bragging. But 4 separate clips, neatly labeled, compiled into a package and delivered with precision. This was something else. Someone wanted to destroy him. Someone wanted him to know. Michael replied with shaking hands. "Who are you? What do you want?" The message sent. Seconds crawled by. No reply. He forced himself to breathe, sliding the phone back into his pocket as Claire came in with a basket of clothes. She chatted about whether he'd like chicken or pasta for dinner, and he nodded absently, his mind far away. By evening, his phone buzzed again. His heart leapt as he snatched it up. Another email from the same anonymous address. "Not yet. Watch her. Watch them. You'll see more." Attached was a single photograph. Grainy, zoomed in, but clear enough. Claire, from last night, stepping into the hotel room. The angle suggested it had been taken from a hallway camera, or perhaps even a hidden lens. Whoever was behind this wasn't just exposing her. They had been watching everything. Michael's stomach twisted. Someone else was orchestrating this, documenting every detail. But why? He deleted the email quickly, afraid Claire might see it, though the image burned into his mind. He excused himself to the garage, pretending he needed to look for a wrench. Instead, he sat in the driver's seat of his car, hands gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. He thought about Daniel, about Thomas, about Eric, about Nathan, about his wife, about the way she had smiled this morning, unbothered, untouched by guilt. Something inside him hardened. The betrayal was no longer just between him and her. It was a conspiracy, a mockery, a performance that someone else had recorded for his torment. He couldn't simply confront Claire. He couldn't scream at her or demand explanations. That would be too easy for her. Too merciful. If the world already knew, or would soon, then he had nothing left to protect. No reputation, no marriage, no dignity. Only the satisfaction of taking something back, of evening the scales in blood if he had to. That night, when Claire slept soundly beside him, Michael lay awake staring at the ceiling. His mind no longer reeled with confusion. It sharpened into clarity. He thought about how buildings were designed, how every structure began with a blueprint. Step by step, line by line, foundation before roof. If his life had been torn apart, then he would draft a new blueprint. One not of steel and glass, but of vengeance. The first step was simple: patience. The second, observation. He would wait. He would watch. He would learn. And when the time came, he would strike. At 3 in the morning, his phone buzzed again. He slipped out of bed, into the bathroom, and opened the message. She isn't finished. Tomorrow night, she'll meet one of them again. Watch closely. Hotel Hilton. Room 307. Midnight. Michael stared at the screen until his reflection blurred in the glass. Whoever this was, they weren't done with him. They wanted him to suffer, to watch his wife betray him again and again until there was nothing left of the man he used to be. But what they didn't know, what Claire didn't know, was that Michael Turner had reached his breaking point. And once a man had nothing left to lose, he became capable of anything. He closed the phone, placed it quietly back on the sink, and returned to bed. Claire stirred, nestling against his shoulder in her sleep. Michael stared at the ceiling once more, his lips pressed into a thin line. Tomorrow night, he told himself. Tomorrow night, everything begins. Michael spent the whole of Sunday in silence, his mind consumed by the email that had appeared on his phone at 3 in the morning. Room 307. Hilton. Midnight. His wife. The words looped in his head like a cursed mantra, poisoning every breath he took. Claire seemed perfectly at ease. She cooked lunch, called her sister for an hour, scrolled through her phone with soft little laughs at videos he couldn't see. When she asked if he was okay, he simply said he was tired, and she accepted it without hesitation. Her indifference confirmed something inside him. She wasn't going to confess. She wasn't going to slip up or break down. Whatever guilt she might have felt, she had buried it deep, disguising it beneath her calm exterior. By 9 that night, Claire told him she was meeting her friend Marianne for late coffee. She's been going through a rough patch, she said casually, adjusting her earrings in the mirror. I won't be long. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, watching her slide into a black dress. She didn't overdo it, but she didn't look like someone heading to console a friend, either. His jaw clenched as he forced himself to nod. Drive safe, he said. She kissed his cheek and left. The sound of the front door closing was like a pistol shot in his chest. Michael waited 5 minutes before standing. His movements were mechanical as he grabbed his keys, wallet, and phone. He didn't know exactly what he planned to do, but every cell in his body screamed that he had to see for himself. The drive downtown was a blur. Streetlights passed like smudges of gold in his vision. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles ached, his pulse hammering as though his own body wanted to betray him. By the time he pulled into the Hilton's parking garage, it was 11:47. He killed the engine, sat in silence, and stared at the glowing numbers on the dashboard. 13 minutes. He stepped out into the cool night air, his breath fogging faintly as he walked toward the elevator. His reflection in the glass doors startled him. His eyes were hollow, his face pale, but there was something else too, a sharpness that hadn't been there before, a hardness etched into his features. Inside the hotel, the lobby gleamed with polished marble and soft lighting. Guests checked in at the front desk, a couple argued softly by the elevators, a group of businessmen laughed over drinks at the bar. To everyone else, it was an ordinary night. But for Michael, it was a descent into hell. He pressed the button for the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, the hallway stretched long and silent, lined with identical doors. His shoes were soundless on the carpet as he walked slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. Room 307. He found it halfway down the hall, the brass numbers gleaming faintly under the sconce. He stopped several feet away, staring at it like it was a living thing, a monster breathing on the other side. At exactly midnight, the door opened. Michael's heart lurched. Claire stepped inside, her black dress hugging her body, her hair brushed to perfection. Behind her, Nathan, one of Michael's longtime friends, the man who had shared poker nights and barbecues at his house, closed the door quietly. Michael staggered back into the shadowed recess near a vending machine, his entire body trembling. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. His wife. His friend. Together. A voice broke the silence. His phone buzzed in his pocket. With shaking hands, he pulled it out. Another email. Now you know. Are you ready to act? Michael's vision blurred with rage. He wanted to kick the door open, drag Nathan out by the throat, scream in Claire's face until the walls cracked. but his feet wouldn't move. He was frozen in the grip of something colder. The email had come seconds after they entered the room. Whoever was sending them was watching. Somewhere, someone knew his every move, orchestrating this like a cruel puppet show. Michael slid down against the wall, his breath shallow, his fists pounding against his knees as muffled laughter drifted through the door. He sat there for what felt like hours but was probably less than 30 minutes, his mind unraveling with every second. When the door finally opened again, Nathan stepped out first, his tie loosened, his smile satisfied. Claire followed minutes later, her hair slightly tousled, her expression calm as she adjusted her coat. Michael pressed himself deeper into the shadows, praying she wouldn't see him. She walked past without a glance, her heels clicking softly down the hall. Nathan went in the opposite direction. Michael stayed frozen until the hallway was empty again. Then he stood, numb, and walked down to the stairwell. He descended step after step, his mind silent now, not with confusion but with something far more dangerous. Outside in the parking lot, he sat in his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Another email appeared. "You see now. You see what she is. Do you want help?" Michael stared at the words, his pulse slow and steady now. Help. The word tasted strange on his tongue. Whoever this was, they weren't just showing him the truth. They wanted him to do something about it. They wanted him to cross a line he could never return from. He typed a reply with deliberate slowness. "What kind of help?" The response came almost instantly. "The kind that ensures she never hurts you again. Meet tomorrow. 9 p.m. Pier 14. Come alone." Michael sat in the silence of the garage, the glow of the screen lighting his face. He didn't know who was behind this. He didn't know why they had chosen him, or what they stood to gain. But as he looked at his reflection in the dark window, he realized something had shifted inside him. He was no longer the man who made breakfast in bed, who brought flowers on anniversaries, who believed loyalty was enough to bind a marriage. That man was dead. Whatever came next, it would be something darker, sharper, carved from betrayal and rage. Michael put the car in gear and drove out of the garage, his face expressionless, his eyes cold. Tomorrow night, he would meet the shadow that had exposed the truth. Tomorrow night, the blueprint of his vengeance would begin to take shape. And as he drove through the empty streets toward home, one thought echoed in his mind, clear and merciless. Claire had chosen this path. Now she would pay for it. The following day felt endless. Michael went through it like a ghost, moving silently from one room to another, pretending to work, pretending to live. Claire asked nothing of him, offered no explanations. She smiled once or twice, answered a phone call, and left in the afternoon to shop. When she returned with bags, she hummed as she unpacked, like the night before had never happened. Every glance at her burned Michael's insides raw. Her face, so familiar, so beloved once, now seemed a mask of treachery. Every gentle gesture, every casual word was a lie. He thought of Nathan's hand on her, of her lips on another man, and his stomach churned. By evening, his mind had narrowed to one single point, Pier 14. He had no illusions left about what waited for him. Whoever had sent those emails knew far too much, had planned everything with precision. They hadn't ruined his life. Claire had done that. But they had illuminated the truth. Now, Michael wanted to know why. At 8:30, he left the house. He told Claire he was going for a drive, needing fresh air after a long day. She barely looked up from her phone. The streets grew darker as he headed toward the industrial side of town. Pier 14 sat on the edge of the bay, abandoned by most shipping companies years ago. It was quiet there now, forgotten, its wooden planks weathered by salt and wind. He parked a block away and walked, his shoes crunching against loose gravel. The night smelled of brine and rust, the air cool against his face. Far out across the water, the city skyline flickered in the distance. A figure stood at the end of the pier. Michael slowed, his body tense, his heart pounding. The man wore a dark coat, his back turned, staring out over the water. His posture was calm, almost casual, but something about him radiated calculation. Michael stopped several feet away. "You sent the emails." The man turned. His face was partly obscured by shadow, but Michael caught the gleam of sharp eyes, the curve of a knowing smile. "I did," the man said evenly. "And you came. That tells me everything I need to know." Michael clenched his fists. "Why? Who the hell are you?" The stranger took a slow step closer, his shoes creaking against the wood. "Names don't matter. What matters is truth. You wanted it. I gave it to you. Now I'm offering you something more." Michael's throat tightened. "And what's that?" "Justice." The word cut through the night like a blade. Michael stared at him. "Justice? You mean revenge?" The man smiled faintly. "Call it what you want. What I know is this: Claire is not who you thought she was. Nathan is not who you thought he was. How many more lies do you think surround you? How long before everything you built is ash? You've seen it with your own eyes. The betrayal, the deceit. And you're still standing here, doing nothing." Michael's voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," the man said simply. "I want to give you a choice. You can walk away, go home, and pretend this never happened. You can let Claire laugh at you behind your back, let Nathan take what's yours. Or—" He reached into his coat. Michael's muscles tightened, ready for anything, but the man only pulled out a small box. He held it out. Michael hesitated before taking it. The box was heavy, metallic. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside, cushioned by dark fabric, lay a pistol. Michael's breath caught. The cold steel seemed to pulse in his hands, humming with a promise he couldn't ignore. "What is this?" he whispered. "It's your way out," the man said calmly. "It's freedom. Power. She betrayed you. He betrayed you. Why should they breathe the same air as you while you drown in their lies? Why should you be the one suffering?" Michael stared at the weapon, his mind spinning. The thought of pulling the trigger, of silencing Claire's false smile forever, sent a surge of heat through him. It terrified him and thrilled him. "I'm not a killer," he said weakly. The man tilted his head. "Not yet. But pain changes people. Betrayal remakes them. You've already taken the first step by coming here. The rest is only a matter of time." Michael closed the box, his hand trembling. "Why are you doing this? What's in it for you?" The man's smile deepened, though his eyes stayed cold. "Let's just say, I don't like liars either. And I've been watching this game for a long time. You have potential, Michael. Potential to stop being a victim." Michael felt dizzy, the weight of the box like an anchor in his hands. He should have thrown it into the water, should have walked away, but he couldn't. The idea had already lodged itself deep inside him. He didn't have to suffer. He could end it. The man turned to leave, his coat sweeping in the breeze. "Think about it. Keep the box. When you're ready, you'll know. And when you act, you won't be alone." Michael's voice broke out before he could stop it. "Wait. Who are you, really?" The man glanced over his shoulder. "A friend." Then he vanished into the darkness, his footsteps fading against the wooden pier until Michael was alone with the sound of the waves. Michael stood there for what felt like hours, clutching the box, his mind screaming. He felt like he had stepped into a story he hadn't written, one that was being written for him, line by hands he couldn't see. Finally, he turned and walked back to his car, the pistol heavy in his pocket. He drove home in silence, his grip tight on the wheel, his eyes blank. When he walked inside, Claire was sitting on the couch, her hair damp from a shower, her feet tucked under her. She smiled. "You're late. Did you get some air?" Michael looked at her for a long moment, his hand brushing the weight of the pistol through his coat. "Yes," he said quietly. "I did." Claire laughed softly and turned back to the TV. She had no idea. No idea at all that her world was crumbling beneath her feet, that her husband now carried a secret heavier than anything she could imagine. Michael walked upstairs, placed the box in the drawer of his nightstand, and sat on the bed in the dark. The man's words echoed in his mind. "When you're ready, you'll know. And deep inside, beneath the fear and doubt, Michael realized he was already closer to ready than he had ever thought possible. The gun didn't stay hidden for long. Michael tried at first to pretend it was just an object, a cold piece of metal locked in the drawer beside his bed. But it called to him. At night, when Claire slept soundly with her back turned, he would slide the drawer open and lift the box out with shaking hands. The first time he held it, he could barely breathe. The weight of it was intoxicating, heavier than he imagined, solid, absolute. He curled his finger around the trigger, the hollow click of dry fire echoing in the silent bedroom. Claire stirred once beside him, and he froze, heart pounding, sweat sliding down his back. From then on, it became a ritual. Night after night, he took the gun out. He stared at it in the dim glow of the lamp, whispering things he couldn't say aloud to anyone. Sometimes he imagined pointing it at Claire as she slept, her chest rising and falling with the ease of innocence. Sometimes he imagined Nathan's smirk disappearing in an instant, his laughter silenced forever. The thought sickened him. It thrilled him too. During the day, he carried on like nothing had changed. At the office, he answered calls, sent reports, and nodded through meetings. But his colleagues noticed the shift, the way his eyes drifted, the way he chewed at his nails until they bled, the way he snapped at simple questions. "You okay, Michael?" one coworker asked, her tone cautious. "Fine," he muttered. "Just tired." But he wasn't tired. He was wide awake. More awake than he had ever been. By late afternoon, he found himself driving aimlessly through neighborhoods, the gun hidden under the seat of his car. Twice he parked near Nathan's apartment building, watching from a distance, waiting. He saw Nathan step out one evening, dressed sharply, phone to his ear, smiling. The sight of him made Michael's vision blur with rage. His hand hovered over the weapon, his breath shallow. "Now," a voice whispered. "Now, before anyone sees." But Nathan walked away, disappearing into the crowd, and Michael let out a strangled sound that was half a growl, half a sob. He couldn't do it. Not yet. At home, Claire carried on like everything was normal. She cooked dinner, scrolled through her phone, chatted lightly about small things. Her laughter at the television grated on him. Every time her lips curled, he saw them pressed against Nathan's. One night, while she showered, Michael unlocked her phone. The passcode was easy, her birthday. He searched her messages, her emails, her call logs. There was nothing incriminating. No obvious trace of Nathan. She had covered her tracks well. But he knew. He had seen it with his own eyes. The absence of evidence didn't erase the truth. It only proved she was careful, deliberate. The next day, he left work early and drove again to Nathan's building. This time he waited longer, parked far down the street, hidden behind tinted glass. Hours slipped by. At last, he saw Claire's car pull up. Michael's pulse spiked. She stepped out, dressed simply, carrying a bag. She looked around nervously before hurrying toward the building's entrance. Michael's nails dug into his palms as he gripped the steering wheel. She lied. She said she was shopping. The urge to follow her was overwhelming. He reached down, fingers brushing the gun. The fantasy unfolded in his mind with startling clarity, walking into Nathan's apartment, catching them together, raising the weapon. The look on their faces. The silence that would follow. But his body froze. His chest tightened, his vision swam. He couldn't move. He sat there trembling, sweat dripping down his temples, until the moment passed. When Claire emerged an hour later, her hair slightly tousled, her cheeks flushed, Michael nearly vomited. He gripped the gun again, his teeth clenched, but all he did was watch as she drove away. That night, he didn't speak to her. He sat in the dark living room, the pistol in his lap, listening to the soft hum of the shower upstairs. His hands trembled as he raised the weapon, pointed it at the empty wall. The sound of water running was like white noise, muffling the storm inside him. When Claire finally came down, wearing her nightgown, smiling faintly, Michael shoved the gun back under the cushion and forced a weak smile. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. "Just tired," he muttered. She kissed his cheek and walked upstairs. The scent of her perfume clung to his skin like poison. Days blurred after that. Michael stopped answering calls from friends, ignored emails, skipped meals. His whole world narrowed to 2 points: Claire and Nathan. He followed them in secret, memorizing their schedules, their patterns. The thought of catching them in the act again consumed him, the fantasy of ending it all playing on a loop in his head. One evening, he trailed Claire as she drove across town. She pulled into a small, dimly lit bar. Michael parked nearby, slipping the pistol into his jacket pocket before stepping out. His heart thundered. Through the window he saw her, laughing, a drink in her hand. Nathan was there too, leaning close, his hand brushing hers. They looked like lovers without a care in the world, free in their betrayal. Michael's hand went to the gun. His pulse hammered so hard he thought his chest might burst. The door to the bar was only steps away. He could end it now. His feet carried him forward, 1 step, 2, 3. His hand tightened on the weapon. He could already feel the trigger under his finger, already see their faces when he appeared, already hear the gasps of the crowd. But then, a boy ran past him, chasing a ball that had rolled into the street. Michael stumbled back, startled, his heart jolting. The boy's mother called out sharply, scooping her child into her arms, glaring at Michael as though he were the threat. Michael froze. His breath came in ragged gasps. His hand slipped from the gun. He turned and staggered back to his car, slamming the door, pressing his forehead against the steering wheel. He had been seconds away. Seconds. His whole body shook as tears burned in his eyes. The boy's face haunted him. It was too close, too raw. For one fleeting second, he had seen what he might become. Not just a man betrayed, not just a victim, but a killer. When he finally drove home, hours later, Claire was already asleep. Michael stood in the doorway of their bedroom, watching her, the gun heavy in his pocket. He whispered to himself, voice cracking, "Not yet, but soon." And though he placed the weapon back in the drawer, a part of him knew the next time he raised it, he might not put it down again. Michael's world had narrowed to a single purpose. The weeks of torment, the sleepless nights, the endless rehearsals with the gun had carved away everything else. Work was a blur. Food had no taste. Conversations slid past him unheard. There was only the image. Claire's lips pressed to Nathan's. Her eyes bright with laughter, her body leaning into him with a softness she never showed at home. Every time he remembered it, the fury burned deeper, hotter. At first it had been like acid eating him alive. Now it was cold, precise. A blade sharpened to a lethal edge. He stopped asking questions. He stopped doubting. He stopped waiting. One evening, after Claire left under the same tired lie of going shopping, Michael didn't hesitate. He slipped the pistol into the back of his jeans, pulled a dark jacket over it, and followed her. His hands didn't shake anymore. His breathing was calm, almost serene. The city hummed with life as he drove. Neon lights flickered, cars streamed past, strangers hurried along the sidewalks. None of it mattered. He was in his own world, cocooned inside the silence of inevitability. Claire's car pulled into Nathan's building again. Michael parked a block away, sitting still until she entered. He knew what came next. The same ritual, the same betrayal, repeated like clockwork. Tonight, he told himself, it ends. He sat for almost an hour, the gun resting in his lap, the weight of it steadying him. He thought of their wedding day, of vows whispered beneath church bells, of promises meant to last forever. He thought of the quiet evenings they once shared, of laughter that had seemed unshakable. And then he thought of the look in her eyes as she leaned toward Nathan, alive, electric, filled with something she had stolen from him long ago. Michael stepped out of the car. His legs moved with eerie calm. He wasn't trembling, wasn't gasping. He was steady, focused. A man already halfway across the threshold of no return. The building's entrance was unlocked. He slipped inside, footsteps muffled on the carpet. The hallway smelled faintly of cigarettes and stale beer. He knew which door was Nathan's. He had memorized it on countless nights of surveillance. Voices drifted faintly through the wood. Laughter. A moan that sliced through him like glass. Michael closed his eyes for one long moment. His thumb brushed the cool steel of the pistol. Then he turned the handle. The door wasn't locked. It swung inward with a soft creak, revealing the living room dimly lit by a single lamp. Clothes trailed across the floor, Claire's blouse, Nathan's shirt. The sounds from the bedroom grew louder, more fevered. Michael walked in, closing the door gently behind him. The gun rose in his hand, steady as if it had always belonged there. He followed the trail, each step measured, silent. The bedroom door was ajar. Through the crack he saw them, tangled together, skin on skin, oblivious to the storm about to break. For a heartbeat, he simply watched. The sight seared itself into him, fueling the fire that had consumed every shred of who he once was. And then he pushed the door open. They froze. Claire's gasp split the air, her face paling as she scrambled to cover herself. Nathan turned, confusion flashing to horror at the sight of the gun. "Michael," Claire's voice shook, thin, desperate. "Please don't." The words never landed. The gun roared, the sound deafening in the small room. Nathan jerked back, blood spraying across the sheets, his mouth opening in a silent scream before he collapsed. Claire shrieked, her hands clutching at Nathan, her body shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her face, her voice breaking as she begged. "Michael, stop. Please. Please, don't do this." Her terror was a knife twisting in him. For a flicker of a moment, the man he had been stirred, the husband who had once loved her, who had once promised her everything. But it was gone as quickly as it came. "You took everything from me," he whispered, his voice raw, ragged. "Everything." The gun rose again. Claire's eyes widened, shimmering with fear. She shook her head violently, her words spilling out in broken sobs. "I'm sorry. Michael, I swear, I'm sorry. We can fix this, we can." The second shot cut her off. Her body crumpled beside Nathan's, her blood mingling with his on the twisted sheets. The room went silent, except for Michael's ragged breathing. He stood there for a long time, staring at what he had done. His hands didn't shake. His heart didn't race. There was only the quiet, the absolute finality of it. The world outside carried on, cars passing, voices echoing down the street, laughter spilling from bars. But inside that room, time had stopped. Michael lowered the gun slowly. The smell of gunpowder clung to the air, thick and metallic. He looked at their faces one last time, frozen in fear, in betrayal, in the final moment of truth. He didn't weep. He didn't scream. He simply turned and walked out, closing the door gently behind him, as though leaving any ordinary room. The night swallowed him. And somewhere deep inside, in the hollow where his heart had once been, Michael realized he felt nothing at all. Michael drove through the night with the windows down, the gun wrapped in an old rag on the passenger seat. The air whipped past him, but it didn't cool the heat on his skin or wash away the metallic scent clinging to him. He expected panic to set in, the crushing weight of what he had done. But instead there was only a strange, hollow calm, as if the storm inside him had finally burned itself out. By dawn, news of the killings was everywhere. Neighbors whispered, police swarmed Nathan's building, flashing lights painting the walls in red and blue. Reporters gathered, spinning tales of a tragic crime of passion, a love triangle drenched in betrayal. Michael watched it all unfold from a motel room an hour outside the city, the television flickering in the shadows. His face appeared on the screen, a wanted man, dangerous, armed. His name spoken like a curse. For 3 days, he drifted, unseen, untethered. He ate when he remembered to. He slept in fits. The gun never left his side. On the 4th night, the sirens came. They boxed him in at a roadside diner, their shouts echoing through the darkness. "Drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them." Michael stepped outside slowly, the pistol heavy in his grip. He looked up at the sky, the stars faint and cold above him. For the first time in weeks, he felt something, not rage, not grief, but release. The last sound was a single gunshot. Whether it came from his hand or theirs, no one could say for certain. When the smoke cleared, Michael lay still on the pavement, the final chapter of a love story gone rotten, a man undone by betrayal, consumed by vengeance. The world moved on. But in the shadows of that city, the echo of his choices lingered, a warning etched in blood. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.